Oh, that's very moving, isn't it? Incredibly hard-hitting. Yet, we don't have to have suffered that level of abuse to come up with a negative understanding of love. And so what we wanted to do tonight at this point was actually bring up our leadership. There's Danny, there's Beth, and Jenny are going to come up and help me with this. And Anth, yeah, you're coming up, aren't you? Do you want to come up now? And because I want them to show you just how they have had to tackle some of the distortions in their life to bring us to where we are. Now, again, don't make this and say, oh, well, that I don't get that or I don't understand it. What we're looking for tonight is to allow something of a miracle to happen in your life that you can think, do you know what? This might be where I need to get some help because I'm defining love in a very distorted way. So what I want to ask each of you, and we're just going to have have you got a microphone? Have you got, yeah, okay. We're just literally going to ask a question. Is there a particular story in each of your life where you came to an understanding either this is what love is, or when the opposite is happening, this is what I don't want love to be, if you see what I mean, because it can work from both angles. And then also then say how then that's affected you in how you operate with people. Because as you saw from that last clip, Jenny found that she couldn't receive love because she'd understood it in such a distorted way. So who wants to start? Come on, be brave. Go on, Danny, then. Yep.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Do you ever watch X Factor? Do you ever see those people get up that sing and you think, how on earth did you think it would be a good idea to go to X Factor and sing? Have you ever had those moments where you think, who told you you're brilliant, you're amazing, when they should have said, you might need to do a bit more practice? Okay, me and Georgia, we know what we're talking about. Okay, well, the moment that came into my head from my childhood was when I was learning to play the piano. I was about 7, and I'd probably been practicing for a year or so, having lessons. I thought I was brilliant. And my dad had a business meeting with somebody, and I was away practicing in the lounge. And they walked past the door on the outside, and I heard the guy say to my dad, oh, is that your son playing the piano? And he said, yeah, but he's only just started. And I remember feeling like, oh. Like, to me, it was a big, wound to the ego, probably. To be honest, he was right. I had just started. But I think over the last kind of 10 or 15 years, that memory has come back a lot, because I think it showed me that I wanted somebody to say, you are amazing, you're absolutely brilliant. I wanted this kind of exuberant, extravagant praise. And I think there's lots of moments growing up where lots of people have said, isn't Danny brilliant? And people have gone, well, he's all right, he's doing okay. And I think for me, I was always looking for this exuberant praise. So I think for me, love had become exuberant praise, or lots of positive words of affirmation, which in some senses I think is valid and is important. But I think sometimes if that's not brought into balance, what it means in my life is the way that I love people is I give them exuberant praise, but sometimes it may be unmerited. So, for example, someone could be totally rubbish and I give them lots of opportunity and go, yeah, you're absolutely amazing, when maybe I'm the reason that people go on X Factor when maybe they shouldn't go on X Factor. But I think what it just showed is that it's easy to have those little experiences that maybe define things, and it's not that giving people words of affirmation is wrong or bad, or to not do that is wrong or bad, but I think for me it kind of had defined what love is, when actually maybe love can be either or in different experiences, and it kind of needs balancing.
Thank you. Go on.
Okay, so for me, I realised this week that for me love means giving in. And I realised that when I was thinking about my childhood, and I was thinking about me and my brother in particular and how we got on. And I have a number of experiences with my brother where I had to give in. Now, if you've got a brother or sister, you might have experienced that as well. But in particular, when we were used to go out in the car anywhere, so we would have a strict regime of taking turns who sat in the front. But if my brother kicked up a fuss, my mum would say, oh, well, will you just sit in the back this time, Beth? Will you just sit in the back? And I remember one day being like, why do I
My
always...
story as well.
why do I always have to sit in the back? And she said, oh, because you won't kick up a fuss if you sit in the back. You'll be good. You're the good one. And suddenly it became, to be the good one, I had to give in. I have to say, there was one occasion, which I was just talking about with Joe as we were coming up, where I didn't give in and I put my foot down, and my dad finally said, yes, you can sit in the front. And I left my trainers in the footwell in the back, got in the front, and my brother got motion sickness and threw up in my trainers, and then said, you should have let me sit in the front. And so all of that kind of, I realised that as little and as silly and insignificant as that sounds, I gave up and gave in things towards my brother and also towards the rest of my family and other people all through my childhood, which taught me in the end that actually, in order to show love to somebody, you have to give in, because that makes you the good one, that makes you the loving one, that makes you the kind one. And this then, it transferred. I had a big argument with my dad once, and I remember my mum just saying, yeah, but just keep quiet about it, don't worry. And I would say, but it isn't fair, like, he should say this as well. And I was like, no. My mum was like, no, just leave it. So I had to leave it, not him. I had to leave it. And then in relationships that I came up to, I would give in all the time to my own detriment, in that I would let them have what they want. I would let them buy the things they wanted to, even if it got us into debt, even if it caused all sorts of problems. So for me, love just became giving in. But on the flip side of that, it meant that if somebody never didn't give in to me, ever, I didn't feel loved. And so suddenly, little arguments now, again insignificant, that I might have with Joe about the rearrangement of a chopping board in our kitchen, I feel I have to give in order to show him I love him, but then he doesn't give in to me, and so I feel unloved, and it's all over a chopping board. And it just shows how all this stuff can be blown massively out of proportion, all because of our childhood experiences.
Thank you, that's amazing. Go on, go Jenny.
Okay, well, I'm not sure I have a story. I think I've concluded this week, this has just been the whole of my life. So for me, love was always communicated as being provided for, either financially or emotionally, and very much being looked after. So that was fine for as long as I felt like the world and everyone in it looked after me. And then I found myself in a situation where I did not feel looked after at all. And so then I had to find other ways of navigating that. But I think where it became problematic is that because I've believed that the provision is what's love, I have turned myself inside out and back to front, trying to be everything to everybody in order to provide. I'm at your service the whole time, and that doesn't lead you to a very healthy place. It sounds noble, but it's actually isn't helpful, and is from this place that's the only way love can look. And sometimes love says, no, I'm not doing that. And sometimes love says, no, I can't be that to you right now. And so I'm on the journey to freedom. So this week, and this will help you. This week, even going through this has been quite challenging for me, realising what I believe, and I think it'll help you all tonight as well. So hopefully you'll get something out of the evening.
Thank you, awesome.
Yeah, for most of my life, I never appreciated how events and occurrences have such a massive impact. First of all, on how we feel we have to compensate for the lack that has been left in us because of the event. And secondly, because of how we superimpose onto the character of God something from that experience that then distorts our understanding of love. And it's funny because I can remember an incident. I can't have been more than 4 or 5 or 6. And do you know, and you think you remember things as a kid, but it's because your mother had a picture of it. And so you think you remember it because when actually you don't. Well, I have no picture of this, but it's as real as the videos that we saw. And when I was at that young age as a child, we used to holiday in Arbroath where my auntie lived. And I remember one day we were walking along a path and we'd bought ice creams. Again, I'm just 4, 5 or 6 years old, probably 5. And there was an opening in a fence, and of course the obvious thing to do would be to go through the opening in the fence. This was the door, this was the gate with my parents. But I chose an alternative route, which was to climb through the 3-slatted fence. I can see it to this day, which I remember my father saying to me, don't climb through there, don't climb through there, you'll drop your ice cream. So of course I took the alternative route, and sure enough, I lost the ice cream off my cone. And That, of course, was a sad moment for a child of that age, but what has had an impact on me, and I didn't realize it, but this is why I can still remember it as clear as day, is because I desperately wanted another ice cream on my cone, but I was refused the right to have one. Now, some of you know my parents. They were loving and kind, and I don't blame them. But often these events, it's not what people intended, it's how they interpret to us. And so I have grown up with the subconscious feeling that if I take an alternative route and I knock the ice cream off my cone, it will not be replaced. Nobody loves me enough to replace the ice cream that got knocked off my cone. Now, for any of you that know me, my whole life in ministry, I've taken the alternative route. I've never gone through the gate, and I've knocked the ice cream off the cone a lot of times. And so I have lived with that desperate fear, first of all, that I will have done wrong and God will not give me that back. And secondly, that the people that I love will not replace that for me. So your understanding of love becomes disrupted, so then you're always trying to do things that offset that so that somehow you'll be loved enough to have that put back. Now, I still struggle with some of those things, and I had one other incident that was a persistent incident for me, that as a child growing up, didn't matter how sick I was, I couldn't stay off school. Now, you might say that's tough love, that's good tough love, and there is a case to be made for that. But what we don't realize sometimes is that our decisions on that are having an impact upon a person's soul, a person's spirit. And so, yeah, there were times when as a kid, I just didn't want to face the exam or go to that lesson, and so I'm really sick. The problem was that the times that I was really sick, I still had to go. Here's what it did in my little spirit. In that young heart, it says that I have to convince you, and you will not let me convince you, and therefore if I can't convince you, you don't really love me. Now imagine growing up as a pastor, as a minister, with the subconscious thing in your heart, if I can't convince you, you don't really love me. These are the things that we struggle with that have shaped in us, and then we try to compensate by doing things that try to do things that will get people to love us or get God to love us, that we try to compensate by the things that we do.
So I think Ant's going to get a whole bunch of ice creams this week, do you? No, I hope you've understood why we've done this tonight, because you're all sat out there, and I know that you're going to have things that come up in your mind, that I believe that the power of the Holy Spirit is that he points to those things where we need to be healed. And on that basis, we want to give you that opportunity tonight to connect and engage with that so that you might find healing and be free. So none of these things we're either exalting or belittling. No. It's just who we are. And then we wonder why, when each of these things goes on, so when something happens with Danny or Beth or Jenny or Anth or me or whatever, where I put my finger on those wounds, we wonder then why there's a problem. And it's because we've actually triggered the memory, and it comes up with either I'm not loved, or what's going on, I'm being questioned about my sincerity, or I'm not being provided for, or I'm being asked to give in. And this is how it is in life. So I hope that's helped. We're going to talk about how we can move on from that, because that's very much childlike behavior that we've brought into adulthood. And that's all about how we feel we are being loved, when actually mature love is how we be love itself. And we're going to move on to that in a little while. So thank you very much.